Is this a professional filming setup? No, not even remotely, but are we still going to have fun? Yes, we are. Hi, my name is Lindy Jung. I am a soon-to-be traditionally published science fiction and fantasy author, and today we're going to dive right into it because I have a really long list of 2026 adult science fiction and fantasy books that I am personally so excited for, and I can't wait to share it with y'all. I'm just going to go through these kind of in the order that they're coming out based off of the month that they're coming out in the US. And I'm just going to share the title of the book, the author's name, and a brief summary of what it's about and what about it caught my eye. I do want to clarify before I begin, however, that this is all totally based off of my personal preferences. It's also a fair smattering of 2026 debuts because I specifically went into the 2026 debut Discord and asked people if they had adult science fiction and fantasy coming out, and then kind of, compiled a list off of that. So there is a little bit of a skew to this list, but I hope that sharing some of these titles puts them on your radar if they weren't on there before, or gets you even more excited for them if you are already hyped. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. The first book on my list is The Poet Empress by Shen. This is coming out January, so it's super close. I think it comes out January 20th. It is a debut fantasy novel about court politics, and the main character becomes a poet in a world where women aren't even allowed to read. It sounds like there's a lot of courtly intrigue going on there, which is something that I've been really into lately. I have a hard time engaging with broader world building that's very heavy and hard fantasy world building type of stuff, but court politics is definitely something that always gets me every time. This one is tagged as both historical fantasy and romantasy, but I'm not getting a very strong read on the romance aspects from the synopsis alone, so your mileage may vary on that one. Next up is The Faithful Dark by Cate Baumer. This one is set in a fantasy version of the Vatican. It seems like it draws a lot from, I don't even know what to call this, but Christian folklore, where there are angels and demons, which, as someone who is not very religious, I do find angels and demons to be really fun. So, very excited for this one. It is touted for fans of Leigh Bardugo, Catherine Arden, all of those kind of strong vibes writers. I associate those authors with books that have very strong and luscious vibes. And the logline for this one is that the main character, Scylla, is born without a soul, but is raised in this walled, very religious city and has to solve a series of murders. However, there's a little twist here in that the main suspect who she's tasked to assassinate has angelic heritage and promises to give her a soul if she helps him clear his name. That sounds delicious already. Very excited for this one. Another February book is SALTSWEPT by Katalina. This one is pitched as, hold on one second, an epic fantasy duology based on Southeast Asian mythology, perfect for fans of the adventures of Amina al-Sarafi, the Bone Ships, and Godkiller. Godkiller was one of my favorite fantasy books of last year, so I'm incredibly excited for this one. The cover is gorgeous. It's a high seas kind of quest book, and I love a quest book. I will never get sick of quest books. I feel like that was exclusively what I read as a kid, and I just have so much fun with them every single time. It's such a good way to explore a fantasy world, especially if that world is really intricate and dangerous and fraught, so very excited for this one. I'm going to be saying that a lot, though. Next up in February, we have The Iron Garden Sutra by A.D. Sui. This one is a science fiction book, so I don't read a ton of science fiction. It definitely gets eclipsed by fantasy a lot of the time in my reading and my writing, but I am trying to consume a little bit more sci-fi because I do find it so delightful every time I read it. This is pitched as Clara and the Sun meets S.A. Barnes's Dead Silence with a touch of Becky Chambers's A Psalm for the Wild-Built in Nebula award-winning A.D. Sui's darkly philosophical murder mystery as a death monk and a team of researchers trapped aboard a spaceship of the dead encounter something beyond human understanding. What a freaking pitch. Even the pitch got me excited there. This one promises to be so unique. I'm pretty sure it's going to be unlike anything I've read before. I've heard amazing things about A.D. Sui's work, so very excited for this one. All right, and the last February book is Agnes Aubert's Mystical Cat Shelter. Oh, I did that right in one go. This is by Heather Fawcett, who wrote the Emily Wilde trilogy, which, if you didn't know already, is a epistolary a trilogy of books about a fairy researcher who is very grumpy and her misadventures with her partner slash academic rival, who obviously they fall in love. And it is such an incredibly cozy but also interesting fantasy series in that the academic research side of things really gripped me, and there was such a sense of detail to it and a sense of realism to it that I could fully convince myself that what Emily was researching was legitimate. I really love that trilogy. I actually just finished it this year pretty recently. I figured right there and then that I was going to read anything that Heather Fawcett puts out, so very excited for this one. The pitch is a woman who runs a cat rescue in 1920s Montreal turns to a grouchy but charming wizard to help save the shelter in this heartwarming cozy fantasy from the New York Times bestselling author of the Emily Wilde series. Cats, wizards, magic. What is not to love about this? Okay, and then kicking off March, we have probably one of my most anticipated books on this list. It is Honeysuckle by Bar Fridman-Tell. We do share an editor, and Bar has read my book, so that's really surreal. This is basically kind of a softcore Frankenstein retelling, but it's super fascinating in that it's about a boy whose sister makes a childhood friend for him out of flowers, who is a girl, and every season she has to be remade in order to kind of persist. But as he remakes her year after year, and as they grow older, she starts to have some questions about autonomy, his role in her life, and what she would be without him. So that's all I know, really. Sounds incredibly fascinating. The cover is gorgeous, beautiful gothic vibes. I still have not quite let go of my gothic obsession that has persisted throughout the past couple years, so I'm so excited for this one. So this is definitely one of my most anticipated books, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it. Next up for March, we have BITTERBLOOM by Teagan Olivia King. I don't know too much about this one, but it seems like it is a spooky forest book. I want that trend to come back because I love a spooky forest book. I love any entanglement of nature and gothic vibes and like the scariness, frightfulness of nature at times. So this one, it is pitched as for fans of Hannah Witten and Ava Reid. In a village plagued by mysterious deaths, Adelaide Thorne wonders if she is truly touched by the devil, and her dad's the vicar. She finds a bell that allows her to see ghosts haunting the village are the spirits of the dead, so she ventures into the spooky woods to free them. Again, this is a pick that was mostly based off vibes. Love the cover, love the synopsis, and I kind of love that March and spring, rather than being like cozy adjacent books, is leaning a lot more gothic and a little darker, but still naturey. That just, as a very seasonal person, like my nails are seasonal, my outfits are seasonal, that just makes me happy. Next up for March is actually a short story collection. This is River Bones and Other Stories by Rebecca Roanhorse. I am not usually someone who looks forward to short story collections. Oftentimes I will stumble upon them and read them and really enjoy them, but not necessarily seek them out. However, this short story collection is going to contain stories, maybe multiple, maybe just one, from the world of Trail of Lightning and Storm of Locusts, which were Rebecca Roanhorse's earlier duology set in a post-apocalyptic world following indigenous characters. Not enough people have read this duology, and I need more people to read it, and I also need the third book to come out eventually. Miss Roanhorse, please. Incredibly fun, so snappy, the characters, you just fall in love with them. I have made so many people read these books, and it is still not enough. So after years of waiting, so excited to see a return to this world and these characters. And I think one of the short stories is from the perspective of the male main character, Kai. I'm ready to read this. I will be buying this day one. Next up for March, another gothic adjacent book. This is Wolfworm by Wolfworm. This is Wolfworm by T. Kingfisher. Quick blurb: something darker than the devil stalks the North Carolina woods in Wolfworm, a new gothic masterpiece from the New York Times bestselling author T. Kingfisher. I've only read a couple of T. Kingfisher books, but I have unanimously enjoyed all of them. I really like that they tend to be on the shorter side, but they still pack an absolute punch. Like, seriously, one of the most efficient fantasy writers we have out here right now. So very excited because this sort of Appalachian Southern Gothic vibe suits me a lot. I love a regional Gothic. I really want to write a Midwestern Gothic eventually, and a Southwestern Gothic also eventually. And I also appreciate how T. Kingfisher tends to bring in science, so the main character of this book is a scientific illustrator. I love seeing like researcher, academic, scientist type characters in fantasy books that approach kind of fantasy tropes and strange happenings and paranormal things with a very almost clinical, very practical, researchy type lens. That was one of the main reasons I loved Emily Wilde, and I think I'm going to really like this one as well. Next up for March is actually another short story collection. I know I said that I don't really seek out short story collections in the same way that I do novels, but this one is Seasons of Glass and Other Stories by Amal El-Mohtar, who co-wrote This Is How You Lose the Time War with Max Gladstone, which, if you haven't read it, incredibly short, beautiful read. I really love Amal El-Mohtar's writing style, although I guess I don't really know which parts were Max Gladstone and which parts were her, but incredibly excited for this short story collection because I don't know. I think I just need more like beautiful prose to soak up and inject into my brain lately. Okay, this next one is, I think, the last one for March. Why is March such a big... Nope, it's not even the last one for March. I'm not gonna lie, it's 100% a cover-based pick, and also because I have read and enjoyed some of this author's work before. This one is called The Fox and the Devil, and it is by Kiersten White. Let me show you the cover. I mean, can you even blame me? That is a cover. It's beautiful. And here's the blurb for this one. An obsession with a beautiful serial killer entangles a vampire hunter's daughter in an immortal sapphic romance in this enthralling gothic fantasy from the #1 New York Times bestselling author of Lucy Undying. So this is like a light Van Helsing Dracula-esque retelling. Not really sure. I just know the main character is a Van Helsing descendant. Love the Dracula stuff that's been coming out lately. I love that we're kind of harkening back to old school vampires. Like, I recently finished watching Interview with the Vampire, and of course Nosferatu was one of my favorite movies of 2025. We are embracing vampires and all that like gothic campiness again, but specifically with old school rules and weaknesses and creepiness. So excited to see this. And again, beautiful cover. Next up, we have Entwined by H.M. Long. Is this the last one for March? Yes, it is the last one for March. And I really enjoyed Hall of Smoke by H.M. Long, so I'm very excited for this one. I think that she is able to kind of write in these different settings and time periods and maintain the vibes that you associate with those settings while still making it really unique. So Entwined is set in the Gilded Age, so kind of a historical fantasy setting. Three sisters join the hunt for a stolen magical artifact in the start of this fantasy duology. I think I just really love a historical fantasy. I love a really rich setting, and historical fantasy is often so transportive because I feel like the author spent a lot of time researching that time period and like really getting things right. And I know that H.M. Long can get the setting right, so I'm very excited for this one. I am just going to keep saying that. It's repetitive, it's silly, but it's true. All right, next up, this one just has a release period of spring 2026, so I'm not sure what month it's coming out in. It's also not yet on Goodreads, so I will update that link once it is up, if I catch it in time. But this one is titled The Patron Saint of White Menageries. It is by Lauren T. Davila. This is a short story collection, which I am kind of shocked that there are so many short story collections on this list this year, but you know, we're vibing. And y'all know that I love a good short story. So this is a speculative short story collection, obviously, if it's on this list. The stories in this collection center around a California inhabited with haunted dreams of stardom and the price for fame that is often paid by Latin people, especially women. Fascinating blurb. Like, already I'm in California, price of fame, like that kind of Hollywood darkness that I find really intriguing and isn't explored incredibly often in fiction. And of course, the focus on Latin people and how they are exploited in that pursuit of fame. All in all, sounds like something that is right up my alley, so very excited to pick this one up when it comes out. Okay, first up for April, we have Burn the Sea by Mona Tewari. This one is pitched as a lush historical fantasy that reimagines the Portuguese attacks on South India in the 1500s and the fierce real-life queen's story. I love that we're seeing a trend of like historical fantasy, reframing certain historical narratives that may be told through a colonial perspective historically. This one does sound really unique and really important, not to put too much weight on that word, but like a narrative that I really would want to learn from because this is something in history that I don't know anything about. I'm gonna say it again. Very excited for this one. Next up for April, we have Thistle March by Moria Corrigan. I am so proud that I said Thistle March. Okay, I guess I can't say it. Thistle Marsh by Moria Corrigan. The blurb for this one reads, fairies disappeared over 100 years ago as suddenly as slipping through a doorway. It was only the very foolish or the very determined who held out hope for their return. Welcome to Thistlemarsh, a ramshackle estate where an impoverished orphan and a beguiling fairy collide in an enchanting novel of love, revenge, and ruin. So this one is actually set in the like post-World War I period. I don't know if that means 1920s or a little bit like before kind of the Roaring 20s era, but this one is definitely very romantic. It's got a historical setting, and it sounds like a house book, which is a term that I've been using to describe Project Crypts as well, where the house is almost a character in and of itself. We love a house book in this house. Next up, we have Prince Weaver by Elian J. Morgan. This one is definitely more of a romantasy than I would typically be drawn toward. However, it is queer, so that got me right there. It's about an anxious apothecary with nature-infused forbidden magic who gets engaged to an invading prince to save his brother's life. Now he has to like conceal his magic, hide his true self, but they have kind of a forced proximity engagement trope. I'm interested in giving this one a try. And again, very excited. Okay, and then I think this one is actually in May, so now we're getting into late spring. Next book on my list is Strange Familiars by Keshi Chow. This one has been pitched as like dark academia magical veterinary school. So it's two characters at a vet school and they're academic rivals, but the vet school is specifically for like magical familiars, which is such a fun and unique premise. I know that Keshi also like is a veterinarian somehow and an author, couldn't be me, but as someone who was pre-veterinary for all of undergrad and like very involved in vet med for a really long time and has healed from that experience, mind you. This one is so unique, right up my alley, and as someone who loves a magical creature, sounds really fun and just very exciting. Next on the list is The Girl with a Thousand Faces by Sun Yi Dean. I really liked Book Eaters a lot. This was her debut, but I kind of feel like this one will be even more up my alley. It's a gothic tale set in historical Hong Kong that meshes ancient myths and local legends into a haunting story of ghosts, grief, and a woman who will not forgive. So the main character washes up on shores with no family, no money, no memories, and it is World War II. So she's kind of going through it. I feel like I have a parasocial relationship with Sun Yi Dean because I listen to Publishing Rodeo, the podcast that she co-hosts with Scott Drakeford, like constantly, even though there hasn't been a new episode since October. So I've heard her talk about this book. I know it's been like a multi-year process to write it and really get it right. You know, it's one of those things where I'm sure it's kind of what some of y'all would feel with me, where you've been hearing about the journey of this book and it's so close to actually coming out and you're so close to being able to enjoy the finished product. Yeah, like for so many reasons, least of all of them, the cover is brilliant. It is so pretty. Cannot wait to pick this one up in May. See, I said it differently that time. I'm a writer. I know words. Last for May is The Last Contract of Iseko by Fonda Lee. I don't know why I double checked. I literally just read Jade City, loved it. I am partway through Jade War, which is the second one. I immediately was like, I will read anything she writes. The world building, incredible. And this is actually science fiction. So it is a standalone space opera about a corporate samurai fighting beneath merciless stars, and death is always a mere breath away. So corporate samurai, I don't even know what that means, but I am incredibly, incredibly excited for this one. I think it's so cool when an author does something so different from what they are most known for, which Fonda Lee is definitely known for the Jade trilogy. From that, I know her mind is brilliant. I know I'll love pretty much anything it comes up with, and I know I'm going to love this a lot. Okay, and then going into summer, we have the first book for June, which is going to be The Unicorn Hunters by Katherine Arden. Of her Winter Night trilogy, I've only read The Bear and the Nightingale, but it left such an impact on me. Even having not read the rest of the trilogy, that book on its own is so special to me. I also actually really love The Warm Hands of Ghosts. I know that one wasn't nearly as popular maybe or mainstream, but I thought it was beautiful. Like, I really thought that was a beautiful story. And so the pitch for The Unicorn Hunters is, with her country's future and her own life at stake, an orphan duchess must journey into a world of myth and there discover a power that may be her salvation or her demise in this enchanting new novel, blah blah blah. Katherine Arden is an insta-buy author for me, even though I haven't read the rest of the Winter Night trilogy, whatever, okay? I like a standalone, just because the quality of her writing, it's both efficient and luscious and luxurious and evocative. Like, it really is the kind of prose that I aspire towards. So yeah, I mean, I'll read anything that she writes, even though frankly, like, the description of this doesn't necessarily jump out to me because unicorns, but I think I'll still enjoy this quite a bit. Next up is actually another science fiction novel. I know, who am I? But this one is called Sublimation by Isabel J. Kim, and I don't want to actually reveal too much, but it's giving Severance, and the brief premise, the brief blurb, is that when you immigrate, you leave a copy of yourself behind. So you split in two, and one person gets to live in the new country and one person stays behind. And I don't want to know much more than that. I think that premise alone is fascinating. It is very Severance coded, but I think there is so much that can be done. Obviously, the author is Korean, so I think there will be also a very personal evocation, I don't know, very personal through line of the immigrant experience there as well. So thrilled to see this coming from a fellow Korean diaspora author, and so fascinated constantly by speculative takes on immigration. Next up for June, we have The Blood Weaver by C.N. Custer, and this one, again, like fabulous cover. We are killing it with the covers in 2026. And in a world where some can manipulate life with a single touch, siblings end up on rival sides, forced to reckon with the choices that led them there. The gripping debut of the Weaver saga is perfect for fans of V.E. Schwab, Andrea Stewart, and Fonda Lee. 3 out of 3. That's all I need to know. I do love any kind of like life or soul or death or body manipulation kind of magic. I think it is so fun and there's so much opportunity for horrible things to happen. So the magic system here has got me very intrigued. Okay, and last book for June. This one actually comes out June 2nd. Again, these are not in chronological order. They're just in an order. This one is called The Heart of the Naga. It is originally written by Yeon-do Lee in Korean and then translated by Anton Her, who does most of the Korean to English translations in publishing. So very fabulous translator. And this is a classic epic fantasy series. The author is called the J.R.R. Tolkien of South Korea. The castles are built on the backs of flying mantas. They're giant birdmen, heartless immortals. Like there's a very vast epic fantasy world here. One of my goals, like soft goals, is to like read more translated works, especially ones from Korea, but I feel like so much of the translated fiction coming out of Korea has been like kind of cozier, which isn't necessarily my vibe. So I'm so excited to see an epic fantasy coming out this way. Thank you, Anton, for my life. Yeah, absolutely fabulous. I'm incredibly excited to pick this up and have it be my summer read. Now moving into July, the first book for July, and here's where the list is going to get a little bit more sparse. We haven't seen all of the titles announced for summer, fall 2026 yet. I'm happy to do a follow-up that includes more of those titles, but I'm also feeling like I'll just be reading them as they come out instead. But anyway, first for July is The Demon Star by Jesse Aragon. So gods rule the planet, demons stalk its canyons while kings beg for mercy. This one is kind of a blending of the religious conflict of Dune, the cosmic strangeness of Gideon the Ninth, and the heart-pounding action of Red Rising. So very like space opera, science fantasy, science fiction. As someone who is incredibly excited for Dune to come out, Dune 3. Dune. No, that's Too Fast, Too Furious. And who has kind of been drawn more into the world of space operas, epic science fiction. Since Dune came out and since I was forced to watch it by my partner, I have been hunting for more kind of modern contemporary works that capture that vibe. So very cool to see this coming out. Excited for it. And also excited for Dune 3. That was actually my only title for July, so pushing into August, we have The Halls of the Dead by S.M. Hollow. But this is pitched as a queer, gothic horror romance set in a necromancy-tinged London, sure to entrance fans of The Death of Jane Lawrence and Mexican Gothic. So this is set in 1800s London. Obviously, extreme bias toward anything involving necromancers. Again, love this historical setting as well, and the romantic aspect. Like, it's really hitting all the marks, and the cover is so incredibly unique. It has a moth on it, like maybe this book was made for me, you know? Next up for August has a very fun title. It is called The Divine Gardener's Handbook, or What to Do If Your Girlfriend Accidentally Turns Off the Sun. This one is pitched as being perfect for fans of Tamsin Muir and Rebecca Thorne. This joyful debut follows a gardener fighting to secure her dream job in the Divine Gardens, manipulating God, antagonizing her attractive rival, and running afoul of a brewing rebellion along the way. This one is very, very queer. It looks absolutely gorgeous, and honestly, it's kind of hard to describe because I don't really know what I'm getting out of the synopsis other than vibes. I love a gardener though, I love botany in general, and this, just the title alone, it sounds so fun, so quirky in a good way, not in a bad way. I have just been gravitating more and more, especially as we're seeing kind of this calcification of certain types of fantasy books being rehashed, redone over and over again. I'm just drawn to more stuff that tries to break the mold in different ways, and this definitely seems like a book that is doing that. We are getting into the fall season now, and this is where there's no covers. There's barely a synopsis, barely a blurb. One of these doesn't even have a Goodreads page yet, and yes, we are working on that, but the first book for September is Witch Daughter by Tanaz Bathina. It is a Persian mythology retelling of the story of Tamine, wife, mother, and rumored witch who desperately tries to stop a tragic prophecy in which her husband and son kill each other on a battlefield, pitched her fans of Circe and A Song to Drown Rivers. Circe is absolutely one of my favorite books of all time. I am still very partial to mythology retellings, especially if they're straying away from kind of the types of mythology we see a little bit too much of. Like, I do feel as if Greek mythology retellings are a bit oversaturated at this point, but Persian mythology is not something I've seen or personally read, at least yet. This one is shaping up to be really unique, really interesting, probably heartbreaking if I'm going to be honest. Okay, and then sometime in September we do have Deadbeat by Leigh Bardugo. This is the third book in the Alex Stern series, which started out with Ninth House and now is maybe wrapping up with Deadbeat. I don't know. The only information on here is that the novel will come out in 2026. Still waiting to hear from my publisher on date. I had hoped for spring, but we may be doomed to fall. So it sounds like this is probably going to come out in the fall, as it does not yet have a cover. But I am really partial to this series. I just have really enjoyed every single installment, love the characters. Honestly, it was probably one of my favorites of the dark academia fantasies that I read. Of course, I'm going to read the next one. All right, and then closing the laptop for this one. Last but not least, in October, my debut novel is coming out. It is called MOTHSBLOOD. It is a dark academia adult fantasy set in Paris at a school for alchemists about an ambitious, terminally so, young alchemist who has to deal with a whole lot of crap after her immortal professor is murdered. It is very queer, it is very feminist, it does put the dark in dark academia. I unfortunately don't have any other titles past October, and don't have that many for the latter half of 2026. If you're looking forward to any books coming out in 2026, whether or not they're adult, sci-fi, fantasy, please let me know in the comments below. If any of these caught your eye, then please let me know as well. If you like this video, you know what to do, and if you're interested in learning more about the publishing process, seeing what life is like for a debut author, then go ahead and subscribe. I think that pretty much covers it. Thank you so much for watching. Sorry that I'm filming in basically a random part of the house. I'm in California at the moment, came home for the holidays. It's hot here. It's hot and it's humid and it's rainy, but we're making the best of it. What's on my nails? The Trouble with Immortality by Mooncat is on my nails, and it's very shiny, coppery, perfect for the new year. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful start to 2026.